Hey everybody, Ben here doing another little video about my Deadlock Model C. Basically some pro tips, a couple pro tips for you when you first get yours from my personal experience with this knife as well as my Model B and the Model A before it. This is one of, if not the best, double action out the front knives you can own. I say that from personal experience using my knives. It's not just because it's fun to play with, but I also use mine pretty much daily. As you can see, again, I've got single edge blade on mine because Grant and Gavin Hawk, they were nice enough, awesome enough to take my Model B, take the blade from it, put it into my Model C for me. So I don't know when you'll be able to get a single edge Model C. It might be a while. I know the first run of them, they were only doing double edge. Never been much of a double edge knife guy myself. But anyway, so on to the pro tips, things that I've learned. This knife is basically 100% rock solid every time it opens. But when you get one and it's brand new, if you happen to notice that there is a little bit of wiggle that shouldn't be there, I can feel it in mine right now. You don't necessarily have to send it back, okay? There's nothing wrong with your Deadlock. It's just that there are parts, now it's rock solid. There are parts inside this knife, mainly in the lock mechanism. And then there's another part or a pair of parts that I'm going to show you called a spring hook assembly, which oftentimes, for whatever the reason, during assembly at the factory, they get over-greased. Grease, in my humble opinion, has no business on these parts because of the way this knife is designed. The tolerances they're so tight and mechanically sound, so to speak, that any excess anything on these parts basically weighs them down, creates drag, and creates a hindrance to 100% lockup. In my opinion, I know what they're doing when you dry the parts, especially in the lock mechanism inside the blade, which I'll show you again in case you've not seen those parts in one of these knives before. Those parts run best dry, from my experience, with nothing on them, in other words. You start weighing them down with grease, creating drag on them, slowing down how they function during the opening of the knife especially, and you start running into lockup issues. That's just been my experience. And the quickest way to fix that is to degrease those parts. So I've already disengaged my lock mechanism, my blade, it's unlocked. Removing the strike plate screws. Pay attention if you ever do this yourself. Just a heads up, not all of these screws are the same length. Also, I did not say, in case you've not seen my other video on my Model C, these are the only screws you want to mess with ever on a Deadlock, whether it's a Model C, B, or A. The screws on this side of the handle, the switch side, don't mess with them. Most likely they've got red or permanent Loctite on them. They're basically liquid welded in place. If you try to undo these yourself, you'll strip them out. So don't even try it. Trust me. Almost did that with one of the screws on my Model B, but I caught myself before I screwed it up. So the first few screws in the strike plate here are all the same length. I've got to remind myself, I believe it's one of the screws at the very front that is a little bit longer. Okay, all the same, good. So it's this one. And that's just because it reaches a little more deeply into the frame. Yeah, there she is. That's the slightly longer screw there, if you can make that out. Hold that up a second. Bear with me. That screw's a little bit longer than, say, that one. So the strike plate's out of the way. It's off the frame. I'm going to move my blade out of here without cutting myself. Again, some changes to the lock mechanism inside the blade. First of all, they're back to putting a C-clip on the back of the blade pin, which I think is an awesome touch. I think it should have been there on the Model B. I don't know if it was or wasn't on all of them. I know mine didn't have it there. No big deal, in my opinion. It's just a nice touch. Because if you're like me, you take your Deadlock apart maybe once a year to clean it because you actually use it. It's great to have those secured in the blade. You don't have to worry about fumbling and dropping pieces. So as you can see, my lock mechanism moves very freely. I can even kind of shake it around. That's because there's no grease on it. I've previously degreased these parts. Now, I think I alluded to starting to say something earlier in the video. I have a feeling I know what they're doing, greasing the lock parts in the blade itself. What that does is it takes away a rattle in the knife when it's locked open. When you've got the knife in the locked open position here, the heaviest part, or actually that's delocked, sorry. It's, I'm looking at things backward. Okay, it's locked open position there. The D-lock bar, which is the heaviest piece in the lock mechanism between the D-lock and the lock bar, I'm not going to take all this out of here, but just trust me. It's the heaviest piece. It's sitting there free. It doesn't have any pressure on it in the lock position here inside the knife. And this doodad is in its position, keeping the knife locked open. And so there's a little rattle there. Putting grease on the parts reduces the rattle. I don't care about a rattle. I want my knife to be 100% locked open, no matter what. So another part here that has a lot of grease on it currently is this spring hook. So I am going to remove that puppy from the frame. You've got another set of screws in the Model C now. One here in the front of the frame, and then one toward the back. I'm keeping these separate because, yeah, that one's shorter than those from the strike plate. Removing this other screw back here toward the back of the handle, or frame. It's the same length as the other one. Good, good, good. This is my first time doing this, so just bear with me a moment. I'm going to grab a tool I don't care about as much as this one. I like to keep my tools that I work on my knives with in good shape. I'm probably being an idiot here. Let's see. Okay. Acts like it wants to move, but then it stops. Why? Okay, well, that may not come out of there. So, I'm just going to do what I can here. Degrease this spring hook here. I'm going to try something just for giggles. I just have a feeling there may be pressure on that plate, for lack of a better term at the moment. Maybe it's screwed into place. Let me see. I know that this screw here holds in a block of steel in the frame there that locks against the locking block in the blade. This guy. So, aha, that's it. So there's a screw holding that puppy down. This guy here, this block, which coincides with this pin or locking block in the blade. Now that I've got that screw out, the shim or steel plate is loose and moving. Well, it's still got a lot of drag. If parts go flying that shouldn't go flying, you saw it here first. There we go, that moved a little more. Come on, baby. Now I can get a grip on it. I just hope this isn't some flimsy piece of shit that bends on me. Okay, good, it's not. It's a good piece of steel there. Okay, now I've got access to that spring hook. And there's a spring inside of it. Let's see if I can carefully, without damaging anything here, if it looks like I'm going to scrape up something, I'll stop, but need something smaller. If I'm annoying the piss out of you and you want to skip ahead, go for it. I don't care. That block is moving. Just don't want to mess up anything. Thankfully I'm working with 7075 aluminum and not 6061. If I had a flat blade screwdriver, I would just grab that. There we go. Thank you for bearing with me, guys and gals. Just gonna carefully wedge this, wiggle it out a little at a time. Up a little, up a little. That spring claw will be mine. Okay, come to daddy. Don't you dare shoot out. There we go. Okay, good. Now, degrease, degrease. Give me that spring. Thank you. I hope that was worth the wait. Thank you. Remove all that white, nasty crap out of my damn knife. I'm going to take a little bit of paper towel. Thoroughly clean this bad boy. Good, 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 good. That nasty damn grease off of you. Put the spring back in. Get back here. Don't do this over your carpet. And definitely not over a floor vent. If you have a house with a floor vent. Never mind. The spring needs to be inside of here first. There's a little milled out area for the spring in this under the spring hook. Push that in here. And just a fingernail, you can pop it back down in there. I know you missed that, but it's a black spring. It was hard to see it show you. And we're gonna put this block back into place. And this is gonna go so smoothly, you're gonna be amazed. And I'm actually just gonna kind of start it because I know I should put this back in place first or next. Let me go ahead and degrease it too, just because, I mean, realistically, the only thing that needs grease, in my opinion, underneath it, long-term, wear and tear kind of stuff, is this slider switch, and it's covered. It's fine. Just gotta remember. Yes, it's got a shape, an outline. I'm just gonna carefully slide this back in, not put any weird pressure on it. I'm going to guide it a little bit with my thumb back here as well. Kind of pulling and pushing at the same time. There we go. Put these screws back in where they go, over my table, not over myself or the floor, so they go bouncing and get lost forever. My little puppy comes and grabs one. And I'm just going finger snug because of the tolerances. You really don't need to turn those down. Plus you're going steel into, I hope we're going into steel threads, but I don't know. It may just be aluminum. I think they're aluminum. But again, these are 70-75. But still, I'm being very gentle, starting the screw especially, so I don't get a cross threading going on. And then we're just gonna snug, snug, snug. One more check here. Right, now I'm gonna push this block back in all the way. Looks good. Thank you, Gavin and crew or assembly team, for not Loctiting that screw. Just gonna turn it back into its place so it holds that block in. Of course, honestly, as tightly fit as that steel block is to the frame, I don't know that you really need a screw holding it, but awesome touch either way. Blades going back in. Piece of cake. Really, you just need to make sure your slider switch is kind of centered, not all the way one way or the other. Put your blade pin and make sure your knife is in the unlock position like mine is, and then just kind of set your blade there, and then you can move it. Strike plate back on. Just line it back up with its holes. Long screw going back up here first. And I kind of do that guy. One down here at the base. If you didn't see my previous video, 5, number 8, I think those are just either quality control and or assembler numbers. Just another cool thing about their knives, Grant & Gavin Hawk. Shows you that there's inspecting and quality control going on. Keeping my fingers away from the front of the handle opening while I'm doing that, because my blade might give me a love kiss or a love bite there if I don't. I'm going to go ahead and just re-snug these. Again, just finger tight. I'm not manhandling or muscling it in there. And then putting the handle scale or frame, whatever you're going to call it, back in place. Well, this screw under the clip here is shorter than usual on previous models. I just kind of wheeled it back into its place there, kind of letting it sit over the hole so it's ready when I'm ready to crank it down. I'm going to show you a little trick I learned about this knife with reassembly with the shorter screw under the grip clip now. You need to wedge something under the front of the clip, which I'll show you so it makes sense here in a moment, with basically the grip clip in an upward position like you're putting it into your pocket. You know, those of you who are the weirdos like me who use their Deadlock. And these screws you can be a little more aggressive with as far as tightening, because you're tightening them back down into the strike plate. It's threaded for these, so you're going steel on steel, which is awesome. And really just adds to the overall strength of the knife, if you think about it. I mean, the strike plate is bolted down into the frame, and then you've got the frame bolted into the strike plate. So I'm going to take one of these Q-tips here now, kind of do like this. I'm going to raise it up. That's a little too fat. I'm just going to use the handle here. Wedge it up like this. Get it to cooperate. It's a plastic one. There we go. What that does is it positions the screw here over its hole in the strike plate, and it lines it up perfectly, makes it a piece of cake to turn back into place. Before I figured that out, I spent, I kid you not, try not to cuss there, about 10 minutes trying to figure out what in the world was going on. Did I screw something up? I couldn't figure it out. I could not get that screw to turn in. And I thought about it, I was like, oh, it's an angle thing, because the tolerances are so tight between this hole through the grip clip. I mean, the tool, once you got it in there, there's very little wiggle room to manipulate the screw. So you got to straighten it up like this, and you'll line it right up with the hole in the frame, or the strike plate. I'll pop it open there. And yeah, that fixed my little issue there. Sometimes when I open the knife straight up like this, there's just that little bit of drag from on that spring hook from the grease. It's gone now. It 100% locked up. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope that helps you out.